If a little green is good, more is even better. Now, back to Green is Good with John Shigarian and Mike Brady.
Welcome back to Green is Good, and we're so honored and excited today to have Betsy Blaisdell on. She's the Senior Manager of Environmental Stewardship for the great Timberland company, which is in New Hampshire. And Betsy, your focus is on environmental stewardship. What does that mean? And welcome to Green is Good, by the way. Sorry.
Thanks very much. My title in environmental stewardship means I oversee our company's environmental footprint around the globe.
Okay.
So I measure what our environmental impact is as a company, and I work to reduce it.
Okay, so around the globe, you're sitting in New Hampshire. What does around the globe mean for Timberland? How many places do you have around the world that you have to tie together?
We have operations in more than 20 countries.
Wow.
We sell our product around the world. So we're in Europe, we're in Asia, and we have factories that are based all over the world too. So I'm looking at both our facilities in all those countries, communicating with consumers in all those countries, and then also the countries where our factory sources were actively engaged in working with our factories on improving environmental standards.
So wait a second. You're really, talk about a huge position and such a critical position. You're helping in terms of the product control and how it's manufactured. Then you're also internally the stewardship issues in terms of getting the employees on board with this and motivating them to be part of this. And then also messaging to the consumers?
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, so tell us a little bit about, let's go through all three of those. Let's talk about the manufacturing side and reducing waste and the process of making Timberland a more sustainable company from a manufacturing and design perspective.
Sure. So I think on the manufacturing end, where we have the most impact is making better decisions at the front end. So where we design and develop our product, work with those teams to give them good environmental information so they can make better choices. It's a lot easier to design a product and assign materials to it that have a smaller environmental impact than to go to our factories and unfairly say, hey, you guys need to figure out how to make your emissions less. You need to figure out how to use less water. It's far more effective if we work on the front end. So that's really the focus of our initiatives.
Okay.
Is to provide good information to the folks designing and developing our products.
And then your employees, how do you get them to enjoy and make the green DNA of Timberland part of what they do inside the company and also outside of the company?
Well, I have to say it's not a very hard job. And if you were in the Timberland building right now, you kind of get it. We've got this great outdoor culture because we're in the outdoor industry. So I think the connection for our employees, it's somewhat explicit. You work in the outdoor industry, you care about the outdoors. We recreate outdoors. We're designing products for consumers who love the outdoors, so it's fairly implicit.
Great. And then when you're tying together what sounds like a daunting position of tying together 20 or so operations around the world, do you have point people or point teams that are sharing best practices and inspiring one another in terms of things they're discovering or things that they're coming up with among all your facilities around the world?
We do. We have global stewards, and those are employees that apply to have 2 years of time where they get written into their expectations specific corporate social responsibilities.
Wow.
And those employees really act as ambassadors for all of our corporate social responsibility initiatives, which include, both environmental and community service initiatives.
Wow. So then you're the glue that brings all of them together and gets the information shared among all of them and throughout all the upper management of the company, then I take it.
Yeah, we have a great team here in New Hampshire that helps manage it. So it's not just me, but a group of really enthusiastic people.
So now we come up then to the big question of your consumers. Then how do you know that your wonderful consumers who love your great products can understand all that you're doing to ensure that your products are designed, manufactured, and that green is really part of the real DNA of Timberland? How do you message that to the consumers?
Well, we're a little kooky. We're sort of inspired by nutrition labels that are on cereal boxes. So our way of communicating is providing the information about the impacts, the good and the bad associated with our product, right on our product, on a label that looks just like a nutrition label on your cereal box. And so consumers can see when they check out a Timberland shoe at a store what some of the environmental impacts are associated with both our business and product. Or if they're shopping in our store, they can see the changes we've made to our storefronts that make them LEED certified, which is a green building certification.
Wow.
Or they can go on our website and see at earthkeeper.com how individuals can become earthkeepers through small individual actions or by joining us and raising our voice more politically on important issues like climate change.
You know, it's amazing, too, Betsy, because as you and John are having your conversation right now, I've gone to the Earthkeepers section of your main website of Timberland.com and would really urge our listeners, if you're listening this morning, lingering over a cup of coffee perhaps at your computer or you have a laptop with you, you really need to check the site out and pay particular attention to the Earthkeepers portion of the site or go to earthkeepers.com. But this is really amazing, showing just the whole process of birth to rebirth, if you will, of different materials being repurposed and put into these beautiful new footwear products.
Cool. Thanks, and I definitely encourage folks to check it out. And you mentioned the products, which, of course, is another important way we can communicate to consumers what we're doing. We can give them these great environmental gifts with purchase. Shoes that are great performance shoes that look cool but also contain recycled and organic materials as well as renewable materials as well.
So I walk into one of your new LEED certified stores and I'm looking at the different shoes I want to buy. And so I can compare and contrast which of the shoes are even greener, which one's made out of more recycled material than the others or had less of a carbon footprint?
You can, and in fact, you're going to increasingly be able to do that with more and more data because, well, we have in product-specific impacts only on some of our shoes now. Beginning next year, you'll be able to see that on all of our shoes. So in the meantime, you can compare attributes, things like recycled content and renewable materials. Next year, for those data geeks that are out there, you'll be able to see all the nitty-gritty on our shoes. Wow. That's the stuff that excites me. Hopefully it'll excite others as well.
The nitty-gritty. Well, I saw a commercial, a beautiful Timberland commercial on television not so far back that showed X amount of that great-looking shoe was made out of recycled material. I got all excited.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear you're excited. I think something even cooler that we've come out with are shoes that can be pulled apart, disassembled for recycling by Timberland. So we can recycle the components into new shoes.
That is so awesome. So wait a second now, Betsy. So now you're messaging this to the consumers. How much do the consumers care, and when they're comparing your products versus other products, that your shoes are greener and your stores are greener? Explain that, and is there any apathy out there that you have to overcome?
Yeah, I think in a tough economy like the one that we've been in, consumers are more careful about how they spend their money. And so when they make a purchasing decision, they're going to look at all the criteria they typically do. Is this a good-looking shoe? Is this shoe high-performing? I think they're also increasingly purchasing with their values. So they want, everything equal. If a company and a product brings their environmental values to action, they're more likely to purchase that product or purchase from that company. And I think that's what we're seeing. Figuring out how to communicate that clearly to consumers so the choice is easy continues to be a challenge.
Gotcha. And now Timberland really from its makings, from its inception, was a green company anyway. And so is this a great time to be at Timberland doing what you do there because the world and the marketplace is caught up to sort of what your DNA is anyway?
Thanks for saying that. I think it's a great time because there's so much collaboration within our industry to really move the needle on environmental improvement. So it's not just one or a couple companies working in the space. It's an entire industry working in a really collaborative way to say, okay, what resources do we need? How can we better communicate to consumers so that we can drive real improvements?
Betsy, do your behind the scenes, do your competitors share best practices? And obviously, to the consumers, you all are competing. But to yourselves, are you sharing best practices and pushing each other to more great environmental stewardship?
We absolutely are.
Great. So what are some of the things that are coming up that are important to Timberland? Like you said, shoes that can be taken apart. When does that come out?
So those shoes, those Timberland shoes, are actually already available in our stores. They're part of our Earthkeepers line.
Okay. And what's in the pipeline that you said that's coming? The more labeling and more the nitty-gritty on the labeling?
Yeah, so I think more for Timberland, we will continue to do more product-specific labeling of environmental impacts on our products. But what's more exciting to me is that we're working with the Outdoor Industry Association and outdoor industry brands on developing a common set of metrics. The idea being that we all work with our suppliers and measure them in a common way so that we can drive real progress. And this summer, the outdoor industry group that we work with, it's called the Eco Working Group, will be launching its first phase of metrics for outdoor industry products. And what's awesome about that is we'll all be able to understand the environmental attributes of our product in a common way.
So that's a macro collaboration to effectuate even bigger change, you're saying?
Exactly, yeah.
Wow. So talking about bigger change, we know the Copenhagen climate conference came and went, and if you were to, a lot of people just said big whoopee-doo. I mean, not a lot really came out of that. We know your company has been a thought leader and a change provoker on climate issues. What's the next steps with regards to climate change, and what do you foresee happening that your company's doing?
So I think that there are two things that we're focused on now post-Copenhagen. One is making sure that aggressive climate legislation is passed in the U.S. We think that would be an important signal for real movement on an international deal. And I think the other focus area for us is really raising the consumer voice on this issue, showing that consumers care to buy low-carbon products. They care for governments to take action on this issue on their behalf. So raising that consumer voice is another important part of our platform, and that's where we really rely on social media and social engagement through earthkeeper.com.
So earthkeeper.com and social and consumer voice. Great points to bring up. How do you listen to your consumers? How is information fed back to you and to your colleagues at Timberland so you can respond to them and to their needs?
Sure, there are a bunch of different ways. I think the coolest way that we have is Jeff, our CEO, leads a quarterly call. So in the business world, we do a quarterly call for our financial release. That's very standard for a publicly traded company. I think what's really unique about our company and Jeff is that we also have a quarterly call related to corporate social responsibility. And each call has a different focus. We just had a climate focus on our last quarterly call. And consumers and NGOs and anybody with a real interest in these issues can get on the call with our CEO and ask questions.
Wow.
And so that's one way that the highest level in the company, plus the CSR team, myself included, get feedback. Another way is this earthkeeper.com site. If folks go on there, they can see we have a section called Voices of Challenge where we ask very specific questions of our consumers and stakeholders around thorny issues, things that we haven't figured out, things that we really need help with. We're looking to have a very active dialogue on that site. And consumers can get on there and ask questions, and we respond to them directly.
Okay, Betsy, so now the million-dollar question, which we ask all great people like you that are in these kind of important positions that run great brands, Twitter, Facebook, is this part of the initiatives that Timberland is part of?
Timberland is definitely on Twitter and Facebook, and my CEO is the most active tweeter I've ever seen in my life. So it's actually hard for me to tweet because he and I like to tweet about the same thing, so I almost give it over to him.
I gotcha. So, but you are doing it. So a couple of you and your colleagues and your CEO are the ones really tweeting at Timberland.
Yeah, yep, we really are tweeting. Jeff is particularly active. We're also on Facebook regularly as well.
Okay, so
those are other places to engage.
But what's the greatest piece of inspiration that's come back to you? The value of social media. Brands still need to understand the value of social media, as do consumers or people out there that just shrug their shoulders at it. What's been the greatest nugget that has come back to you vis-a-vis Facebook or the social media networks that you've been able to integrate into your company or take as a form of inspiration?
Well, I think all critical feedback we get on the site is definitely been inspiration for me. It lets me know that there are consumers out there and stakeholders out there that are really paying attention to these issues, and that they do care. So any critical feedback we've gotten off the site has been particularly valuable for me steering our agenda and initiatives.
Gotcha. And so are you hopeful, and is Timberland hopeful, that climate policy and climate change will start changing in the near future, or you'll be able to influence some of that change?
We are hopeful. We were really engaged in the House debate over climate, and now that the Senate is heating up again, we look forward to participating in that dialogue and showing that there is a strong business case, a strong economic case for seeing climate legislation passed.
You talk about LEED certification, and it's an acronym. And so for our listeners out there, the fact that you're making your stores LEED certified, I don't want that just to get easily passed over. What does that mean in terms of actual tangible things that our listeners will understand that you're doing to make your stores greener and leaner and better?
Well, encourage them to go in, because we actually display how we do this on our walls.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, for us, it's mainly using reusable materials that we source locally. So if you go into a Timberland store, pretty much everything that you look at, except for the clothing and footwear, which is beautiful and new, is reclaimed materials. And we've simply repurposed them, not reprocessed them, but just repurposed them to become a store fixture. That and the fact that we have incredibly energy-efficient lighting. I'd say look up at our lighting, but it would kind of blind you. It's very bright. But believe it or not, they're LED bulbs that use about 5 watts of energy, which is way less, about half the amount of a compact fluorescent, if you can believe it. And they last about 50,000 hours, which is awesome. It means we don't have to really ever change these things out. So very energy-efficient lighting and reclaimed materials are the big ones. The things that you might not see as close up is we work with the malls that we occupy to establish bike parking, public transportation routes, greater access for smaller vehicles, so preferred parking for hybrid and alternative fuel vehicles. Those are the funner conversations we're having, because that creates improvements for other tenants in the building.
Right. So all the new stores that you're building from here on in all LEED certified? Is that what's happening?
We're in the process of certifying our third store.
Wow.
Our third new store, and all of our future stores are going to meet the LEED standard. The LEED Silver standard is our target, and we're not going to necessarily fill out the paperwork to get all the stores certified, but at least we've gone through the process for our standard design and know that the standard meets the certification.
Gotcha. Hey, let's go back now and turn the conversation a little away from the consumer for a second and talk about employees. So what other things internally, you sit in New Hampshire, which is historically a great green environmental state also, and now what other things do you do internally for the employees to show your green DNA that allows them to show their green DNA and further inspires them and motivates them?
Well, I like that we're doing this call the day before Earth Day because tomorrow over 7,000 folks will be serving with us on Earth Day. So we, as a company, go out and serve in our communities on community greening type projects, so trail restoration, tree planting, removal of invasive species, beach cleanup, etc. We do that around the world, and enjoy this amazing benefit that we have of paid community service time. We get 40 hours of paid community service. So that's one example. Next month, we've got Bike to Work Month, where we will create a fun little challenge for our employees to bike commute. And in New Hampshire, we do some fun things like courses on how to maintain your bike. We even bring in the local Papa Wheelie's bike shop to help our employees tune up their bikes for commuting to work by bike over the summer, and sort of continues. Every month we try to find some cool way to keep the engagement going.
So every employee gets 40 hours of paid community service.
Yeah,
that's
huge
amazing.
Luxury, huh?
That's amazing, and it's also inspirational, and that's great. And do you also incentivize employees for being entrepreneurial and coming up with concepts that can further green the company or green your mission?
We do. In fact, every year we have an award called the Cardin Welsh Environmental Award for Excellence, and it's given to an employee or a team of employees that come up with a very innovative and sustainable way to reduce Timberland's environmental footprint. And this past year, we gave it to one of our folks in retail construction. He helped develop all the LED lighting that is now going into our stores around the world.
Wow. So now let's go back to the around the world. Now you are, you are the senior manager in terms of environmental stewardship, and it is a worldwide position. Do you have to travel a lot to go visit other Timberland locations around the world?
I do. Absolutely. And increasingly I'm getting better on how to limit that. I think it's not so much travel to visit Timberland facilities, it's more travel to meet with other brands for the type of collaborative work that we do to forward our agenda. So that's the rub. Those are the most effective meetings that I have.
Right.
But we haven't completely figured out how to do that yet at a distance. So while I do a lot of travel, I tend to, I call it trip chain.
Right.
Or I figure out how to get everything on the way out and everything on the way back, sort of like going to the grocery store and figuring out how to fit 15 more errands in while you're there. So I've gotten really good at that, but I haven't eliminated all travel yet.
But it also, I'm sure it gives you then a unique and important perspective as you travel to different continents around the world and see different cultures and the green DNA of those cultures, and it allows you to even be better at what you do. By having that travel, you get a great perspective, I'm sure.
For sure. It allows me to be more realistic and also much more creative in how I create tangible resources for our factories that, are under a lot of constraints.
Betsy, we're down to the last 3 or so minutes, and there's a lot of people out there that listen to our show. We get a lot of feedback and emails that are young people that are either in college or just getting out of college, and they want to be you. They want to be part of the Green Revolution, and they want to earn their way up to your position. Is there some pearls of wisdom that you could share with our listeners, our young listeners, our entrepreneurial or our green motivated, our greenagers out there that want to become the next Betsy Blaisdell?
I love that term that you just used. I'm going to have to copy that from you. That's great. My advice would be when they get to college or an MBA program, to look up an organization called Net Impact. It's an organization that works with business students in particular that have a real passion for CSR. It links them up with other students interested in working on CSR-related projects, as well as companies that are trying to push forward a commerce and justice agenda. And I think, my advice for people that want my specific job is take your skills to a company that shares your environmental values, and start off in another business discipline like IT or supply chain or even marketing, and develop your skill set there. I think that makes you a credible business person, and slowly begin to add more and more sustainability-related projects to your job description. Build that over time, get your experience, and then essentially prove yourself so you can make it into a CSR role. It's really hard to go straight into corporate social responsibility because our teams are very small. We act as internal consultants. So when we do look to hire, we look within. We look at those passionate employees who have proved themselves in the business, have demonstrated their passion over time, and we take from that pool versus necessarily going external.
Well, Betsy, Mike and I just want to say thank you for your time. We know how busy you are and what a big position you have. We're both honored and humbled by your time today and all the information you were able to share with our listeners. It's truly inspirational. We ask all our listeners out there to not only purchase Timberland products to support such a great company, but go to their website to learn more about what they're doing, Timberland.com or Earthkeeper.com. Also, as Betsy said, Net Impact for all our greenagers out there. Go learn more about Net Impact so you can become the next Betsy Blaisdell. Betsy Blaisdell, you are living proof that green is good.
You are way too sweet. Thank you so much.